So now we're going to go on to The Last Crusade. This is the one I thought the series would try to dip because I felt the first two movies were still building the world, they were still expanding it, it was still unusual, they were still trying things. In the second one, some things didn't work as well as the first, but it was still a genuine attempt to try and expand the world. The third one, I thought they'd been a lot more safer. I think they've been burnt by the response to the second one. And went back to the template of Raiders of the Lost Ark, where they're chasing down something through a lot of clues. There's a lot of smaller clues to work out. But the bigger sequences, I thought, are more obviously big sequences. They're getting chased again and again and again. But always, for me, it feels like it's the same sequence again and again and again. Where it's similar amounts of people chasing them, similar gags. And it feels, to me, it just feels like it's very pasteless because it's the same thing again. Always variations, like sometimes it's a motorbike, sometimes it's planes, it's always, there's a tank, but they always feel like you're seeing similar gags. The tank's a big blowout sequence, but there's more gags. It's a big showstopper, but it still feels similar beats to the first one, to the first sequence to the second sequence, and it's trying to do similar beats to the first movie by making the tank feel like the truck sequence in the first one. But I think it's more expanded, it's bigger, but I don't think it's better. I think it's because the first one Spielberg was clear about what objectives were, and he was trying to be inventive, but he wasn't trying to do anything that went away from the main plot or the main thing the character was focused on. And this one, it feels like, yeah, there's points they're focused on throughout the movie, but they'll stop the movie to go to this side element or this side element. And it just feels like I'm seeing a lot of distractions and there's no real through line of character moments. There's character bits in it, but it feels more like a TV show. The whole thing feels like, here just set up, here's the action scene, we're going to have a TV break halfway through it, we'll end the action scene, have some more kind of comic-y interactions, another action scene, TV break. That's what it feels like to me. It just feels like something ready made for TV. It came out during Spielberg's one of his weak points where he made this, he made Always, and he made Hook. I quite like Always, but I mean these other two were very weak, for me very weak films that were a bit lazy and unfocused. He seemed to have hit a rut that he came back out over Jurassic Park and Schindler's List. But that's the point where I think he'd kind of lost his way slightly. And Last Crusade is a free pass, but I'm not sure it deserves it because it takes certain characters from the first one, certain locations from the first one, brings them back, or maybe it's not the exact location, but it's very similar things like sandy deserts and all these sequences feel that they take place in similar elements. So even though it's not exactly the same beats, it feels very similar. Some of the characters come back but are much broader in this one than they were in the last one. Or the first one, I mean. And it's just not interesting because you've seen it and they're making it feel like a comedy. And it's not a very funny comedy because characters who were serious with sense of humour in the first one now are just broadly comic characters who are a lot less competent. And what was good about the first one is people could be funny, but they were competent, they knew what they were doing. This one, you're either Indiana Jones or the Nazis or your comic relief, and there's no in between. I mean, Sean Connery plays his father in this one, and he's a comic relief who has some street smarts at times, but mainly he's a buffoon who knows a lot about books. And Connery plays it well. I mean, he does a good job of playing that, but all the interactions they have still feel like it's from a TV show. It doesn't feel like it's a real interaction. There's no like anger there or any interaction. It just feels like it's too broad. Like in the first one, there's lots of resentment between Marion and Indiana Jones throughout that never really go away because of what's happened in the past. That doesn't happen here. It's like there's resentments, but they're all solved in very artificial ways. And there's the female lead in this one turns out to be the villain, and she's a Nazi sympathiser, which should be good, should be scary. It's okay, but it's not. It doesn't hit you because you can work it out beforehand, and then the character doesn't do that much after that. And there's a lot of vague motivations, but nothing really I just feel like I'm watching something and passing 2 hours. And even now, if I want to watch an Indiana Jones movie, I'd rather watch the first two rather than this one. This one I'd watch once in a while and I'd always think, when I'm watching this, it just feels weak and lazy. It's sort of like Return of the Jedi for Indiana Jones series, where there's some nice moments, but the momentum's gone. Like, Harrison Ford still does well, but he's broader than he was before, and he's seeming into habits of playing Indiana Jones. He's not playing Indiana Jones, he's playing himself playing Indiana Jones. And it becomes a problem. And I don't know if I want to say this movie, it's just like this kind of vague remake of the first one, but just not as good. I mean, there's nothing interesting about it. The Holy Grail is a great subject matter. The whole idea of the knight's been trapped in this one room forever is a great idea. Nothing's done with it. It's not actually filmed the way Spielberg filmed stuff in the past, where there are suggestions of other stuff going on that you'd have a few shots centering up rather than having tons of similar shots that don't set up anything. It just feels like it was very broad, and it's like Spielberg's instincts out of a wasp when he seemed to have hit his lull. I think this film is really badly affected with that lull, but I'm in the minority. A lot of people love this film, but I just think you're just watching something you've seen before. It's just a typical sequel, not as good as the original, but it's okay, it's watchable. But I wouldn't choose to watch it very often because of what it is. Finally, we have the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, the much reviled final entry until the new one. This one had a long period of gestation. There was plenty of scripts written. Apparently the final version is a mix of 3 or 4 different scripts, and you can tell because the film script is terrible, and the script writer of this one is doing the next one, which is not a good sign. But yeah, the script is pretty weak in this film, and there's lots of moments you're thinking, what the hell are they doing? On the other hand, it's just trying something new again. It's not trying to be the same film as the last one, where it felt like they were just trying to do the same film as the first one but make it blander. This one they actually were trying to do something new a lot of times, but they just didn't do it very well. I mean, it's the first sequence action scene is pretty depressing, because I mean they go in and set a sequence up before you've even settled into the movie. It's the typical early sequence of a movie of Indiana Jones set up. But the problem with this one, and the same sequence in The Last Crusade had a sequence of young Indy, which it didn't really tell you much more than what you already knew, but it was still fun to see. You got away with it in the Last Crusade a little bit. This one is like, it's not even a end of an old adventure, it's the beginning of this adventure, but it feels so unmotivated. It's establishing Indiana Jones is older, but it doesn't establish much more beyond that. It just feels very unmotivated, because basically they're in a government government warehouse from the end of the first one. It's getting raided for some objects tied to the Crystal Skull by Russians, who are now the villains rather than the Nazis. Now, that's the Russian bit is the best part of the film, because it's set in a Cold War where the Russians and Americans are very suspicious. People are paranoid. It's a great setup, and whenever they touch on that, it's terrific. It's really, all the Russian stuff is the most interesting part of the movie. But the first sequence is kind of boring, because they set up a lot of vague surprises and lots of vague motivations, but you can never tell what the geography is of the place they're going to try to find. So you're always confused where you're looking and why he's doing anything. Because one thing Spielberg's really good at is setting up where you're going and what you should be looking at. This one, he doesn't. It just feels like you're seeing shots of events and you're not that motivated. Only really when he gets out of that location into like this fake nuclear town that's about to be bombed, do you actually feel you're in a location that's interesting. But then to do that the fridge bit where he hides a nuclear blast inside a fridge and it gets blown away and he survives, which isn't very good, but I don't think it's as bad as people say, because it's like some of the ridiculous stuff they've had in other movies It's not, you know. I could take it because I thought, well, it's not very good, but it's actually better than what came before in this movie, where there's a lot of fights that I had no idea where the hell they were meant to be, because they were shot like just so vague, and I wasn't quite sure where I was going. At least this thing I knew where it was meant to be heading. So Spielberg and Lucas are both taking the blame for that sequence. I mean, the nuclear fridge is not a great idea, but I love the 50s setting, so I can actually take it without a problem. It's not very good, but it's okay. It's like, I've seen worse. You know. So yeah, and then we go into the more interesting part where they think Indiana Jones might be a spy to the Russians because it turns out his pal was a spy, they never knew, and they're all suspicious of him, and the witch hunt started and he's a victim of it. And that's great. You really wish they'd developed that bit, because if they developed that bit for at least another 10 minutes, it would have set the film up so much better, because you'd have felt like he really was on the run from a lot of people. And it really been a bad decision, and it really would have set the movie up a lot more. But it's done briefly, and it's almost just used as a setup to get to the next plot point. And again, it's like Spielberg's usually very good at that stuff. And you wonder why it was so bad at this bit. And it's like, what happened? I mean, they're blaming Lucas for all of this film, and I don't think it's very fair, because a lot of the stuff that's wrong with this film is wrong with the script and the direction. Like what I've just described in that first sequence. And it's not to do with just point of view of setting stuff up what's important to the character. That's set up badly, that is a director's job. That's what they're there for. So there's a big problem in this film where a lot of the setup should have been done by Spielberg that hasn't been done, or he should have insisted that this set up better to get to the next point. So, you know, so all the interesting bits are kind of crammed into these little points, and then we get to this the worst bit of the film, the most awful part of the film is Shia LaBeouf as Indiana Jones Jr. or Mark, or whatever you call him. He's miscast. He's just miscast. It's like, it's one of those things that's like, how could no one realise how badly cast this guy is? He's just not right for this part. He's not right for it, like, at all. So, but he's in the film, and you have to endure him for the next hour, and he sinks the entire movie. Because instead of actually focusing on the interesting bit, which is the Cold War and the Russians chasing Indiana Jones, which could have made a really good movie, you're stuck in this bloody awful father-son thing, where the father finds out he's got a son, all their interactions, we find out it's Marion's son with Indy, and there's all these things that nobody cares about. It's like this, it's basically the economy scenes from the last movie done really badly, done even worse than those ones. And it's just boring. It's just, anytime they stop the movie to do this, the film just, sucks the life out of it. And it's just hard to watch, because it's just done badly. And that's what suckers the film, basically, is the fact that Shia LaBeouf's in it, and he's not right. He's meant to be this sort of 50s rebel, but he doesn't look like a rebel, he doesn't look like a very 50s guy, he just doesn't look like the part, he doesn't know how to play the part. He's just one of the most awful performances I've seen in a film for years. It's just so miscast. And you've got to blame Spielberg and Lucas for not realising he's miscast. He's completely wrong. They cast someone for box office basically because he'd been in hits, but they didn't cast him for the part. And it was just terrible. And again, why didn't Spielberg see this? He's the director, he should know, watching a film, that these scenes are not working. And the scenes drone on and on. So there's some nice sequences where Indy gets chased through his college, and there's some fun stuff there. I mean, there's some fun stuff throughout. There's a bit later on where they're in this landscape full of ants, these kind of killer ants, which is silly, but it's fun as hell because it feels much like a 50s sci-fi movie. There's some other nice stuff in there, like there's the Crystal Skull stuff, the Nazis going after the mind control that's tied to Crystal Skull. and all the Aztec stuff. All of that and a better script would have made a fun movie, because they've set up all this stuff that could be fun, but they've just junked it for this awful drama. So I mean, the mind control stuff, the Nazis feels very Quatermass, very 50s movies. It's just great stuff that just gets chucked away. The Russians get chucked away. There's a whole sequence where the Russians are chasing them. It should be the big sequence where you see India at its best. Instead, he's sidelined. Shia LaBeouf takes over, does a lot of stupid stuff. It's painful to watch. It's like, I'm meant to be with the central character of the film, which is Indiana Jones. I'm stuck with this character I don't like. And your focus in that sequence is just wrong. It's just not, you don't know where you might be looking, but you know you're looking in the wrong place. So they're setting up another movie to follow this one with this character. The character doesn't work, and you're blowing the big sequence where you should have had Indiana Jones. So there's lots of weird decisions here. I mean, if you want to be objective, Last Crusade's a better film, but this one's so weird it's a more entertaining mess, because the stuff they do off the side, like the aliens and the 50s paranoia and all the kind of Cold War stuff's much more interesting than anything in Last Crusade. But the Shia LaBeouf stuff kills it. And it just feels like there's bits of the plot that should have been there, that was there, that get cut down to put this character in, and this character just kills every sequence he's in. It could have been a good movie if he wasn't in the movie. And that's the big problem with film. You feel this guy gets slammed down your throat, you must like this character, and you don't, and it's terrible. So that's the big problem with this film. So you can never really recover. I mean, there's lots, even towards the end, where they're going into the Aztec temples and finding out what aliens, the Aztec gods are, like multi-dimensional creatures, which is actually fine. A lot of people hated it, but I thought it's a fun, because I mean, the whole movie's about 50s sci-fi movies. It's just the same as the 30s stuff was about 30s tombs. You know, it's like, that's what it's about. It's fine. They're trying something new. You might like, you might not, but stop moaning about something that, at least they're trying something different. It's actually a decent sequence. I mean, the whole 50s thing, because Spielberg and Lucas love the 50s stuff. It always comes through, and it's always so strong. You wish the rest of the movie was better, because you can see a good movie in here, but you also can see this other movie that isn't working. I mean, they bring Marion back, and she's okay, but she's not directed very strongly. And you can wonder where Spielberg's head was in this film, because there's so much of it that needs a strong director, which he usually is. And this thing, it just is like, the motivations are all over the place. The focus the film's meant to be in, which is what Spielberg's usually good at. What am I meant to be looking at, what am I meant to be thinking about, that's what he's really good at usually. It's just not there, and it's like, what happened? You can say, oh, Lucas wanted some more stuff that Spielberg maybe didn't want. But Spielberg's the biggest director in modern history. He can do whatever the hell he wants. I'm sure Lucas would have gone along with him with lots of stuff as well, and I think it was a lot more with Spielberg than, I think it was a combination of both of them really. Like, you can't blame one without blaming the other. They both had equal power in this series, and they both had bad ideas, and there's a lot of sequences that are very CGI, which smacks of Lucas more than Spielberg, because Lucas is much more CGI focused than Spielberg is. It's more of a Lucas thing. So I'm sure he can get blamed for that, but the focus of the film, the idea of casting LaBeouf in this film is pure Spielberg. The father-son stuff's pure Spielberg from lots of his films. It feels like that stuff, but it's done really badly. So it's a bit of a mess, but that's the thing, is it's coming down to the fact that if you look at, like, Dirty Harry, those films go way down as well. Die Hard the same way, where it becomes this thing where the actors are playing a part that the public want to see them play, but they've lost interest. Or they've lost the touch of how to do that thing right. And in this series, it's like, well, everyone in this series still has been making good stuff, or decent stuff. Why did they go so far wrong in this last film? Because they all know what to do. It just feels like there's like everyone's eyes were off the ball. Really, it can't just be one person who went wrong. It has to be a lot of people who went wrong. So this film could go so far wrong, and it's just a bit of a mess, which is a shame. Now there's a fifth film apparently coming out. I have no interest in it at all. I mean, there's been no Lucas involvement. It's meant to be Spielberg and the writer of the fourth one. And the problem with the fourth one was basically Spielberg had no focus and the writing was bad. So that does not help me, keep me interested. We'll see how it goes. I'd rather they not make it. I'd rather they just leave it alone. But I'll probably go watch when it comes out eventually. But it's tricky because, I mean, the first one was so perfect that it's almost like everyone wants to see it because it's a part of their childhood, it's part of the movie going experience. They want to see more and more of it. Like heroin addicts. And you need to keep making these movies, but sometimes you just crap after the first one or even the second one, just say that's enough, we've done it, move on. But this time you get to the fourth one, here's like it's a bad idea. And in this case, I think it was, my personal opinion, was a bad idea after the second one. After the second one, I'm happy they just hadn't made any more. But that's me. But I hope you enjoyed this. I think a bit more rambling than normal, but I had a lot of mixed feelings with this series. Because I genuinely like them, but they frustrate the hell out of me at the same time. Especially the last two. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I should be back next with the start of the Marvel movies. I'm going to do the Marvel movies individually and characters like Iron Man, Hulk, Captain America. Like just do the individual movies. Like the series of movies, so you have the Iron Man 1, 2 and 3, Captain America 1 and 2. So I'll be doing that, and I'll also be doing the Dracula Hammer movies as well. So I hope you enjoy those when they come out, and I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you later. Bye.